Marcus Webb slammed his fist on the conference table so hard the water glasses shook. "You want to fire me for being a father?" His voice echoed through the room. "My wife died in my arms. I buried her while you people were counting bonuses, and now you're telling me I'm not good enough." The three executives stared at him. His 8-year-old daughter Sophie watched from the corner, her small hands trembling. But what happened next would bring this billion-dollar company to its knees and force everyone in that room to beg for his help. They laughed at him for bringing his daughter to a job interview. They wouldn't be laughing for long. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Marcus Webb had exactly $47 in his bank account when he walked through the revolving doors of Titan Financial Group. He knew the number because he had checked it 3 times that morning. Once when he woke up at 4 a.m., once after Sophie's babysitter sent that text message, and once more in the parking garage, sitting in his 12-year-old Honda Civic, trying to convince himself that today would be different. $47. That was what remained of a man who once designed trading systems worth billions. Sophie tugged at his hand. "Daddy, why are those people looking at us?" Marcus glanced around the lobby. She was right. Every pair of eyes had found them, the security guard by the elevator, the receptionist behind her marble desk, the parade of executives in their $1,000 suits rushing past. "They're just curious, sweetheart." He squeezed her hand. "Don't worry about them." "But that lady laughed at us." Marcus looked toward the reception desk. The woman there, Patricia, according to her nameplate, was whispering something to her colleague. Both of them were smiling. Not the warm kind of smile, the other kind. "She's not laughing at us." Marcus knelt down to Sophie's level. "She just doesn't know us yet." "Will she know us later?" "Maybe." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Or maybe it doesn't matter what she thinks. What matters is what we know about ourselves, right?" Sophie nodded, but her grip on his hand tightened. The lobby of Titan Financial Group had been designed to intimidate. Marcus understood that. He had worked in places like this before, temples of money, where the floors were polished to mirrors and the air smelled like expensive cologne and quiet desperation. 2 years ago, he would have belonged here. He would have walked through these doors in a tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase, nodding to colleagues who respected his work. Now, he was wearing a suit he had bought at Goodwill for $12. The sleeves were slightly too long. The color had faded from black to something closer to gray, and he was holding the hand of his 8-year-old daughter, because her babysitter had decided at 5:47 that morning that she had better things to do. "Mr. Webb?" Marcus turned. A young man in an expensive tie was approaching them, tablet in hand. "Yes?" "I'm Derek, from Human Resources." Derek's eyes traveled from Marcus's scuffed shoes to Sophie's worn teddy bear. "We weren't expecting. The interview is for one candidate. We don't typically. My childcare fell through this morning." Marcus kept his voice steady. "I apologize for the unusual circumstances, but I'm fully prepared for the interview. My daughter will be quiet. She won't cause any disruption." Derek glanced at his tablet, then back at Sophie. "Sir, this is a senior position. The interview panel includes our Director of Operations. It's not really appropriate to. I've been preparing for this interview for 3 weeks." Marcus felt something harden in his chest. "I've researched your company's infrastructure, identified vulnerabilities in your public-facing systems, and prepared a comprehensive security assessment. My daughter being here doesn't change any of that." "I understand, but do you have children, Derek?" The young man blinked. "What?" "Children. Do you have any?" "No. Not yet." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let me explain something to you. When you have a child, everything changes. Every decision you make, every breath you take, it's not just about you anymore. It's about them. About giving them a life worth living. About showing them that no matter how hard things get, you don't give up." He looked down at Sophie. "My daughter is here because I had no other choice. And I'm here because she deserves a father who fights for their future. Now, are you going to let me interview, or should I leave? Derek's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at his tablet again, as if hoping to find an answer there. The conference room is on the 12th floor. His voice had lost some of its condescension. Elevator Bank B. Someone will meet you there. Thank you. Marcus led Sophie toward the elevators. Behind them, he could hear Derek's voice, low and urgent, speaking into his phone. Probably warning the interview panel. Probably telling them about the desperate man who had brought his kid to a job interview like some kind of amateur. Let them talk. Let them judge. Marcus had stopped caring about other people's opinions 2 years ago in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and grief. Yo! The elevator rose in silence. Sophie pressed her face against the glass wall, watching the lobby shrink below them. Daddy. Yes, sweetheart. Are you scared? Marcus considered the question. His daughter had a way of asking things that cut straight to the bone. A little, he admitted. Are you? Sophie nodded. Those people don't like us. They don't know us. There's a difference. What if they never like us? Marcus crouched down, taking both of Sophie's hands in his. Then we'll find people who do. But first, we have to try. We have to walk into that room and show them who we are. Can you do that with me? I can be brave. I know you can. He kissed her forehead. You're the bravest person I know. The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor. A woman was waiting for them. Tall, severe, with hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. Her nameplate read, Diane Morrison, Senior HR Director. Mr. Webb. She didn't offer her hand. I was informed about your situation. I appreciate your flexibility. I wouldn't call it flexibility. Diane's eyes lingered on Sophie. I would call it an exception that shouldn't have been made. But since you're here, we might as well proceed. She turned and started walking. The panel is waiting. Please try to keep your child under control. Marcus felt Sophie's hand tighten around his fingers. She'll be fine, he said quietly. She's very well behaved. I'm sure she is. They walked down a corridor lined with glass-walled offices. Inside each one, people in expensive clothes stared at computer screens, talked on phones, shuffled papers. The machinery of money. Marcus had once been part of it. He had once believed that success meant a corner office and a 6-figure salary. Then Elena got sick. Then the world showed him what really mattered. In here. Diane stopped at a conference room door. The panel will ask questions. You'll have approximately 30 minutes. Please be concise in your answers. Understood. She opened the door. The conference room was dominated by a long mahogany table. 3 people sat on one side, 2 men and a woman. The man in the center had silver hair and the kind of face that suggested he had never been told no in his entire life. Mr. Webb. His voice was flat, unimpressed. I'm Bradley Morton, Director of Operations. This is Janet Chen, our HR counsel, and Thomas Henderson, Head of Technology. Thank you for seeing me. Let's skip the pleasantries. Bradley's eyes moved to Sophie. Is this some kind of joke? Excuse me. The child. Bradley gestured dismissively. Did you really think bringing a little girl to an interview at Titan Financial Group was appropriate? Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. My babysitter canceled this morning. I had no alternative. I explained this to your staff. And they should have turned you away at the door. Bradley leaned back in his chair. This position requires a serious candidate. Someone who understands professionalism. Someone who can prioritize the demands of this company over personal inconveniences. My daughter is not an inconvenience. She's a distraction, and in this business, distractions cost money. Bradley shuffled some papers on the table. I've reviewed your file, Mr. Webb. 2 years without employment in the financial sector. 2 years of doing... What exactly? Night security computer repair? I was caring for my family. Caring for your family. Bradley repeated the words like they were foreign concepts. Meanwhile, technology evolved. Markets shifted. Systems were upgraded. The world moved on, Mr. Webb, and you stood still. With respect, sir, I didn't stand still. I survived. Survived what? Marcus took a breath. He had known this question would come. He had rehearsed his answer 100 times. But saying the words out loud in front of his daughter, in front of people who had already decided he was worthless, that was harder than he had imagined. My wife passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. I took time off to care for her during her treatment and to be with her at the end. After she died, I needed to be present for my daughter, to help her through her grief, to rebuild our lives. The room went quiet. Janet Chen, the HR counsel, made a note on her tablet. Her expression revealed nothing. Henderson, the technology head, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Bradley Morton didn't move. So you prioritized personal matters over professional development. I prioritize my family. And you expect us to believe that won't happen again. That the next time something comes up, a sick child, a school event, whatever, you won't abandon your responsibilities to this company. Marcus felt Sophie press closer to his leg. She was listening. She understood more than they realized. I've spent the last 2 years working 2 jobs while raising my daughter alone. His voice was steady, controlled. I've learned to optimize every minute of every day because I had no choice. I've solved technical problems at 2 in the morning because clients in other time zones needed help and I couldn't afford to lose the work. That's all very touching, but I'm not finished. Bradley's eyebrows rose. People didn't interrupt Bradley Morton. You want to know if I can handle pressure? Marcus continued. I've handled pressure that would break most people in this building. I've sat in hospital waiting rooms not knowing if my wife would survive the night. I've explained death to a 6-year-old who kept asking when mommy was coming home. I've rebuilt our entire life from the ground up while working jobs that barely paid the bills. Mr. Webb, I'm here because my daughter deserves better. Better than a father who accepts defeat. Better than a life where she learns that the world is too hard to fight. If that makes me unqualified in your eyes, then I'm sorry for wasting your time. But I won't apologize for being a father first. Silence. Henderson was staring at Marcus with something that might have been respect. Janet Chen had stopped taking notes. Bradley Morton's expression hadn't changed. Are you quite finished? Yes. Good. Bradley tapped his pen against the table. Because nothing you've said changes the fundamental problem. You're a risk, Mr. Webb. A liability. This company doesn't hire people who might disappear when things get difficult. We need commitment, dedication. Someone who puts Titan Financial first. I understand commitment better than anyone in this room. Do you? Bradley stood walking slowly around the table. Let me tell you about commitment, Mr. Webb. I've been at this company for 23 years. I've worked weekends, holidays, missed my own children's birthdays. I've sacrificed everything for this firm. That's commitment. That's not commitment. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. That's absence. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What did you say? You missed your children's birthdays. Marcus held Bradley's gaze. You sacrificed your family for your career, and you're proud of that. You think it makes you dedicated. But all it means is that somewhere out there, your kids grew up without you. And they'll remember that long after this company forgets your name. Bradley's face reddened. How dare you? I dare because I know what matters. Marcus pulled Sophie closer. I know because I held my wife's hand when she took her last breath, and the only thing she asked me was to take care of our daughter. Not to make money, not to climb corporate ladders, to take care of Sophie. That's what matters. Everything else is just noise. The room held its breath. Then Bradley Morton did something unexpected. He smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted weakness. "Henderson," he said without looking away from Marcus. "What's the status of the candidate from Peterson and Associates?" Henderson cleared his throat. "He's waiting downstairs. Strong technical background. MIT graduate. No, personal complications." "I think we've seen enough here." Bradley returned to his seat. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Webb. We'll be in touch." "You're not going to ask about my technical qualifications?" "I don't need to. This interview is over." Marcus stood frozen. He had known the odds were against him. He had known they would judge him for bringing Sophie. But to be dismissed without even a chance to prove himself. "Bradley." The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman stood there. Late 30s, elegant with the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Marcus didn't recognize her, but from the way Bradley's face went pale, she was important. "Miss Chase." Bradley straightened in his chair. "We weren't expecting you." Victoria Chase stepped into the room. Her eyes moved from Bradley to Marcus to the little girl clutching her father's hand. "I was in the lobby earlier," she said. "I saw Mr. Webb arrive. I saw how your staff treated him. There were unusual circumstances. I saw a man who refused to abandon his daughter when things got difficult." Victoria walked to the head of the table. "I saw him kneel down and tell her that Daddy wasn't giving up. I saw courage, Bradley. Real courage. Not the kind you perform in boardrooms. With respect, Miss Chase, the candidate's personal situation makes him unsuitable for... His personal situation makes him exactly what this company needs." Victoria turned to Marcus. "Please sit down, Mr. Webb. I'd like to hear about your technical qualifications." Marcus hesitated. "I don't understand." "Neither do I, frankly." Victoria pulled out a chair. "I inherited this company from my father 3 years ago. I've spent every day since trying to build something he would be proud of. A company that values character over credentials. A company that sees people, not just resumes." She looked at Bradley. "It seems I haven't succeeded." "Miss Chase." "Sit down, Bradley." He sat. Victoria turned back to Marcus. "Your resume mentions experience with security architecture. Tell me about that." For the first time since walking through those revolving doors, Marcus felt something like hope. 3 years ago, I worked for Meridian Technologies. I was part of their cybersecurity division, specializing in threat detection and system vulnerability analysis. What happened? I was good at my job, maybe too good. Marcus sat down, pulling Sophie onto his lap. I identified a pattern in emerging malware, a new kind of attack that could adapt to defensive measures in real time. I spent months studying it, developing countermeasures. And then my wife got sick. The words were harder to say than he expected. I took medical leave to be with her. When I came back, he paused. My work had been credited to someone else. My supervisor, a man named Crawford. He told HR I was unreliable. 2 weeks after my wife's funeral, they terminated my employment. They fired you after your wife died? They escorted me out like a criminal. Victoria's jaw tightened. What happened to the company? 6 months after I left, they were hit by the exact type of attack I had been studying. The malware I had warned them about. It destroyed their systems, exposed client data, caused millions in losses. They never recovered. Filed for bankruptcy 8 months later. 3,000 people lost their jobs. And Crawford, promoted. VP at a firm in Seattle. 6-figure salary. Marcus's voice was flat. The world doesn't always punish the guilty, Miss Chase. Sometimes it rewards them. The room was silent. Henderson leaned forward. The Meridian breach. I remember that. It was all over the industry news. Nobody could figure out how the attackers got through. I could have told them. Marcus met his eyes. I had the solution. They just didn't want to hear it from someone who dared to put his dying wife before their quarterly targets. Victoria stood and walked to the window. For a long moment she said nothing. Sophie? She finally said, turning around. That's your name, right? Sophie nodded shyly. That's a beautiful teddy bear. Does it have a name? Mr. Buttons? Sophie held up the worn stuffed animal. Mommy gave him to me. Victoria crouched down to Sophie's level. Mr. Buttons looks like a very good friend. He is. He keeps me safe when Daddy's at work. Your daddy works very hard, doesn't he? He works 2 jobs. Sophie held up 2 fingers. One at night and one on weekends. But he always makes me breakfast. And he always reads me stories before bed, even when he's really tired. Victoria looked up at Marcus. Something had shifted in her expression. Mr. Webb, she said, rising to her feet. I want you to tell me. The lights flickered. Everyone looked up. The fluorescent panels buzzed, dimmed, then stabilized. What was that? Janet asked. Henderson pulled out his phone. His face went white. We have a problem. Marcus saw it before anyone explained. Through the glass walls of the conference room, he could see the trading floor below. People were standing staring at their screens. Some were shouting. Others were running. Henderson! Victoria's voice was sharp. What's happening? Our systems! Henderson was scrolling frantically through his phone. Something's wrong. The trading algorithms are... They're executing unauthorized transactions. Thousands of them. Shut them down. We can't. The override codes aren't responding. Nothing's responding. Bradley stood up. This is impossible. Our security systems are state-of-the-art. State-of-the-art doesn't matter if someone's already inside. Marcus was watching the chaos unfold below. The pattern was familiar. Too familiar. How long has this been going on? Henderson looked at him. What? The unauthorized trades. How long? I don't. Maybe 5 minutes. Why? Marcus did the math in his head. 5 minutes. Thousands of trades. The attack wasn't random. It was systematic. You have about 10 minutes, he said quietly. Maybe 15. After that, there won't be anything left to save. Victoria turned to him. What are you talking about? I've seen this before. Marcus stood handing Sophie to the nearest chair. Stay here, sweetheart. Don't move. Daddy? I'll be right where you can see me. I promise. He walked to the window, watching the trading floor descend into chaos. Red numbers everywhere. Sell orders executing at impossible speeds. The machinery of money eating itself alive. This is the attack pattern I studied at Meridian. His voice was calm, analytical, the voice of a man who had found his purpose. Polymorphic code that rewrites itself in real time. Your security systems can't stop it because it's never the same program twice. Every time you block one approach, it adapts. It learns. That's not possible, Bradley sputtered. We spent $20 million on cybersecurity. And whoever designed this attack spent years learning how to beat it. Marcus turned to face them. I know because I was one of the people trying to stop them, before Crawford stole my work and got me fired. Victoria stepped toward him. Can you stop it? I don't know. Honest. Direct. I've had 3 years to think about how to beat this thing. I know its patterns, its weaknesses, but I've never had a chance to test my theories. But you might be able to. I might. He looked at Sophie sitting alone in the corner, clutching Mr. Buttons. Or I might fail, and then I walk out of here with nothing same as I came in. Victoria didn't hesitate. Henderson give him access. What? Henderson looked like he might faint. You can't be serious. He's not even an employee. We don't know anything about him. For all we know, he could be connected to the attack. He shows up the same day our systems collapse, Bradley added. Knows exactly what's happening. This is too convenient. Convenient? Marcus turned on them. You think I planned this? I came here to interview for a job. I brought my 8-year-old daughter because I had no other choice. If I wanted to attack your company, do you think I'd bring my child along? I don't know what you do. I don't know anything about you. Then let me tell you. Marcus stepped closer. I'm a man who lost everything. My wife, my career, my reputation. I've spent 2 years working jobs that pay barely enough to keep the lights on. I came here today because this was my last chance, my last hope. And now your company is about to collapse, and you're standing here accusing me instead of letting me help. Victoria raised her hand. Enough. She turned to Henderson. Give him access. Full administrative privileges. This is insane. Do it now, or you can explain to the board why we lost everything because you were too proud to accept help. Henderson stared at her. Then slowly he pulled out his tablet and began typing. You have access, he said flatly. Terminal 3. Don't make me regret this. Marcus moved to the nearest workstation. The screen was filled with cascading error messages, red warnings scrolling too fast to read. But underneath the chaos, he could see the pattern, the familiar signature of an old enemy. Sophie. He looked over his shoulder. His daughter was watching him with wide eyes. Daddy's going to work now. You remember what I do when our computer breaks at home? She nodded. This is the same thing, just a little bigger. He turned back to the screen. I need everyone to be quiet. I need to concentrate. His fingers found the keyboard. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of carrying a solution that nobody wanted. 3 years of watching from the sidelines while the world moved on without him. Now finally he had a chance to prove what he had always known. He was never the problem. He was the answer. Marcus Webb began to type. The keyboard felt like an extension of his hands. Marcus hadn't touched a system like this in 3 years, but muscle memory was a powerful thing. His fingers moved across the keys with a rhythm that surprised even him. What's he doing? Bradley's voice cut through the room. Henderson, what is he doing? I don't know. Henderson was watching over Marcus's shoulder. He's accessing the core architecture. How does he even know where to look? Marcus didn't answer. He was too deep in the code now, swimming through layers of corrupted data, like a diver searching for treasure in a sunken ship. The malware was everywhere, spreading through the system like cancer through healthy tissue. Every time he thought he had found its source, it shifted. Adapted became something new. Talk to me, Mr. Webb. Victoria had moved closer. Tell me what you're seeing. It's worse than I thought. Marcus's eyes never left the screen. This isn't just an attack. It's an invasion. Whoever designed this had access to your system architecture. They knew exactly where to hit. That's impossible. Your security protocols are based on standard industry frameworks. They're designed to stop conventional attacks. Marcus pulled up another window, his fingers flying. This isn't conventional. This is personal. Personal. What does that mean? It means someone built this specifically for Titan Financial. They studied your defenses, learned your patterns, found your weaknesses. This took months of preparation, maybe years. Bradley stepped forward. That's absurd. Who would spend years planning an attack on us? Marcus paused. A line of code had caught his attention. Something familiar buried in the chaos. I know this signature, he said quietly. What? The code. The way it's structured. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. I've seen this before. At Meridian. Henderson shook his head. The Meridian attack was 3 years ago. That code would be obsolete by now. The framework isn't obsolete, it's evolved. Marcus was typing faster now, pulling up comparison windows, analyzing patterns. Whoever created the original malware has been improving it, refining it, making it smarter. Crawford. Victoria said the name like a question. Marcus's hands stopped moving. What did you say? The man who stole your work. You said his name was Crawford. Could he be connected to this? Crawford doesn't have the skill to build something like this. He's a manager, not a programmer. But he had access to my research. He knew what I was developing. Marcus resumed typing, but his mind was racing. If he sold that information to someone who knew how to use it. You're saying your own work is being used against us. I'm saying the foundation of this attack is based on something I created, something I designed to protect systems, not destroy them. Marcus felt sick. Someone took my defensive algorithms and reversed them, turned my shield into a sword. The trading floor below had descended into complete chaos. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see people shouting, running, staring at screens filled with red numbers. The attack was accelerating. "How much time do we have?" Victoria asked. "Minutes, maybe less." Marcus was deep in the code now, searching for the weakness he knew had to exist. The malware is targeting your financial core. Once it reaches the transaction servers, it will start liquidating everything. Client accounts, corporate assets, everything. Everything. $2 billion, maybe more. Gone in seconds. Bradley grabbed Henderson's arm. "Shut down the servers, pull the plug, do something." "We can't." Henderson looked like he might be sick. "The malware has locked us out of manual controls. If we try to force a shutdown, it could trigger a cascade failure. We'd lose everything anyway." "Then what do we do?" "We let him work." Victoria's voice was steady. "Mr. Webb, what do you need?" "Quiet." Marcus didn't look up. "And time. I need time." Sophie's voice came from the corner, small, frightened. "Daddy?" Marcus's fingers paused. He turned to look at his daughter. She was sitting exactly where he had left her, clutching Mr. Buttons, her eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, sweetheart." He forced his voice to stay calm. "Daddy's just fixing their computer. Like at home, remember? But everyone's scared." "I know, but you don't need to be scared. I'm right here." "Promise." "I promise." He turned back to the screen. The code was shifting again, adapting to his probes. Every time he thought he had found a weakness, the malware sealed it shut. It was like fighting a living thing. "This is taking too long." Bradley was pacing. "We need to call the FBI, the SEC, someone who actually knows what they're doing. By the time they arrive, there won't be anything left to save." Marcus was working faster now, sweat forming on his forehead. "I need everyone to stop talking, now. You can't speak to me like—" "Bradley." Victoria's voice was sharp. "Shut up." The room went silent, except for the sound of Marcus's fingers on the keyboard. He was back at Meridian now in his mind. Back in the basement lab, where he had spent countless nights studying this exact pattern. He remembered the breakthrough he had made, the vulnerability he had discovered. The malware's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. It adapted, constantly rewriting itself to avoid detection. But that adaptation required processing power. And processing power required a central coordination point. The brain. Every attack had a brain. Marcus began searching for it. Layer after layer of code, each one more complex than the last. The malware's creators had hidden it well, buried it under mountains of misdirection and false leads. But Marcus knew what to look for. He had spent 3 years thinking about this moment. "There." He whispered the word like a prayer. "What?" Henderson leaned closer. "What did you find?" "The timing sequence. Every adaptation the malware makes requires a synchronization pulse, a heartbeat. If I can interrupt that pulse at exactly the right moment, the whole thing crashes. Maybe. Or maybe it just gets angry and destroys everything faster." Marcus looked at Victoria. "I need you to understand something. I've never actually tested this. I theorized it would work, but I was fired before I could prove it." "What are the odds?" "Honestly, I don't know. 50-50. Maybe worse." Victoria didn't hesitate. "Do it. If I'm wrong, then we lose everything. But we're going to lose everything anyway if we do nothing." She met his eyes. "I'd rather go down fighting." Marcus nodded. He turned back to the screen. The timing had to be perfect. The synchronization pulse occurred every 0.3 seconds. He would have a window of maybe 0.05 seconds to inject his code. Miss it, and the malware would adapt. He would never get another chance. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Daddy?" Sophie's voice again. "Are you winning?" Marcus smiled despite himself. "I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm trying really hard." "You can do it. You always fix everything." Something shifted in Marcus's chest. His daughter's faith, pure and unconditional. She didn't care about resumes or credentials or 2-year gaps in employment. She just believed in her father. He couldn't let her down. Marcus watched the code scroll across the screen, counting the pulses. 1, 2, 3. He could see the pattern now, the rhythm of the malware's heartbeat. "Here we go," he whispered. His fingers moved. The code he injected was elegant in its simplicity. A timing interrupt perfectly calibrated to hit the synchronization pulse at its most vulnerable point. It was the kind of solution that only someone who had spent years studying this specific threat could have devised. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen went dark. "No." Henderson grabbed the edge of the desk. "No, no, no. What did you do? What did you do?" Bradley was already reaching for his phone. "I'm calling security. I want this man arrested." "Wait." Victoria held up her hand. "Look." The screen was flickering back to life. But something was different. The cascade of error messages had stopped. The red warnings were fading, replaced by status indicators that slowly, one by one, turned green. "That's impossible." Henderson was staring at the screen like it had just performed a miracle. "The core systems are stabilizing. The unauthorized trades are reversing. How is that possible?" Marcus pushed back from the terminal. His hands were shaking. The malware had a dependency loop in its replication module. Interrupt the timing sequence at the right moment, and the whole thing collapses. But you have to know exactly where to hit, and you have to be fast. "How fast?" "I had a 0.05-second window, maybe less." Victoria looked at her watch. "How long was that from start to finish?" Henderson checked the system logs. 93 seconds. 93 seconds. Victoria repeated the number slowly. "You stopped an attack that my entire technology department couldn't touch. In 93 seconds. I've had 3 years to think about it." Marcus stood his legs unsteady. 3 years of carrying a solution that nobody wanted to hear. The trading floor below was slowly returning to normal. The shouting had stopped. People were returning to their desks, staring at screens that now showed stable numbers instead of catastrophic losses. Sophie ran to Marcus, wrapping her arms around his legs. "Did you fix it, Daddy?" He lifted her into his arms, holding her close. "Yeah, sweetheart. I fixed it." "I knew you would." "How did you know?" "Because you're my daddy." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Daddies fix everything. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. He blinked them back. Not here, not now. Bradley was the first to break the silence. "This doesn't change anything. He's still not qualified for the position. One lucky break doesn't make up for 2 years of unemployment." "Lucky." Henderson turned on him. "You think that was luck? I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've never seen anyone do what he just did. That wasn't luck. That was mastery. He could be connected to the attack. He shows up the same day, knows exactly how to stop it. That's suspicious." "It's not suspicious, it's fate." Victoria moved toward Marcus. "Or maybe it's justice. A man who was wronged, who had his work stolen, who lost everything because he dared to be a good husband and father. And 3 years later, he gets a chance to prove what he's always known." "Victoria, you can't seriously be considering—" "I'm not considering anything." Victoria's voice was firm. "I've made my decision." She turned to Marcus. "I want you to head our new cybersecurity division. Full authority to build a team, implement whatever measures you think necessary. Competitive salary, comprehensive benefits, and whatever flexibility you need to care for your daughter. Marcus stared at her. I don't understand. An hour ago, your staff was mocking me in the lobby. An hour ago, I didn't know who you were. Victoria glanced at Bradley, then back at Marcus. Now I do. And I'm not going to let pride or protocol stop me from doing what's right. The board will never approve this, Bradley said. An unvetted candidate hired on the spot given control of our entire security infrastructure. It's unprecedented. Then we'll set a precedent. Victoria didn't back down. This company needs people like Mr. Webb. People who understand that character matters more than credentials. People who know what it means to fight for something that matters. This is a mistake. Maybe. Victoria smiled slightly. But it's my mistake to make. I'm the CEO, Bradley, and I'm telling you that Marcus Webb is exactly what this company needs. The room fell silent. Marcus looked at Sophie, then at Victoria. Before I accept, I have conditions. Bradley snorted. Of course you do. Name them, Victoria said. I pick up my daughter from school every day. I'm home for dinner every night. I don't miss her school plays, her parent-teacher conferences, her birthday parties. Not for any meeting, any emergency, any crisis. My daughter comes first. Always. That's not how this industry works, Henderson said. Cybersecurity requires round-the-clock availability. Attacks don't follow school schedules. Then we build a team that can handle attacks without requiring one person to sacrifice their entire life. Marcus met Henderson's eyes. I've spent 2 years learning that work means nothing if you lose everything else. I won't make that mistake again. Victoria nodded slowly. What else? I build my own team. I hire who I want, not who HR recommends. I want people who've been overlooked, underestimated, written off. Single parents. Career changers. People who know what it means to fight for a second chance. That's highly unorthodox, Bradley said. That's exactly the point. Marcus turned to him. Your orthodox approach almost cost you $2 billion today. Maybe it's time to try something different. Victoria extended her hand. Anything else? Marcus looked at her hand, then at her face. She was serious. After everything that had happened, after the mockery and the judgment and the near destruction of her company, she was offering him not just a job, but a partnership. One more thing, he said. I want to know who was behind this attack. I want to find them, and I want to make sure they never do this to anyone else. You think you can track them? I know I can. The code they used was based on my work. They left fingerprints everywhere. It'll take time, but I'll find them. And when you do, then we make sure the world knows what they did. Crawford, whoever he sold my research to, everyone who profited from stolen work and destroyed lives. We expose them all. Victoria's smile widened. I think I'm going to like working with you, Mr. Webb. She extended her hand again. This time, Marcus took it. Call me Marcus. Victoria. Their handshake lasted longer than strictly necessary. Neither of them seemed to mind. Sophie tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Does this mean you got the job, Daddy? Marcus laughed. It was a strange sound, rusty from disuse but genuine. Yeah, sweetheart. Daddy got the job. Does this mean we can get a puppy now? The tension in the room broke. Even Henderson cracked a smile. We'll talk about the puppy later, Marcus said. Right now, let's just celebrate this okay. Okay. Sophie held up Mr. Buttons. Mr. Buttons says congratulations. Tell Mr. Buttons thank you. He says you're welcome. Victoria crouched down to Sophie's level. Sophie, your daddy is a very special person. Do you know that? Sophie nodded seriously. He makes the best pancakes, and he does all the voices when he reads stories. I bet he does. Victoria looked up at Marcus. I think I need to hear these voices sometime. Maybe someday. Marcus felt his face warming. Right now, I should probably get Sophie home. It's been a long day. Of course. Victoria stood. Henderson will give you access credentials. We'll work out the details of your contract tomorrow. For now, just... She paused. Thank you. For what you did today. For not giving up. I couldn't give up. Marcus pulled Sophie closer. I had someone counting on me. He turned to leave, but Bradley's voice stopped him. Webb. Marcus looked back. The older man's face was unreadable. What you said earlier, about missing my children's birthdays. Bradley paused. My son doesn't speak to me anymore. Hasn't for 5 years. Marcus didn't know what to say. I'm not apologizing for what I said in the interview, Bradley continued. I still think you're a risk. But maybe. He stopped. Maybe you're the kind of risk this company needs. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even really an acknowledgement. But coming from Bradley Morton, it was something close to respect. Thank you, Marcus said. Don't thank me yet. I'm still going to make your life difficult. I'd expect nothing less. Marcus walked out of the conference room with Sophie in his arms. Behind him, he could hear Victoria issuing orders, Henderson making calls, the machinery of recovery beginning to turn. The lobby was different now. The same marble floors, the same towering ceilings, but something had changed. The receptionist Patricia looked up as he approached. Her expression was nothing like the smirk she had worn that morning. Mr. Webb? She stood. I just heard what you did. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. For earlier. For how I treated you. Marcus studied her face. She seemed genuine. It's okay, he said. You didn't know me. That's not an excuse. I should have been professional. I should have treated you with respect regardless of... She glanced at Sophie. Regardless of circumstances. Then let's start over. Marcus shifted Sophie to one arm and extended his hand. I'm Marcus Webb. I'll be running the new cybersecurity division. Patricia shook his hand. Patricia Coleman, reception, and I promise to be nicer from now on. I'd appreciate that. Your daughter is adorable, by the way. What's her name? Sophie. Hi, Sophie. Patricia waved. That's a beautiful teddy bear. Sophie held up Mr. Buttons proudly. His name is Mr. Buttons. Mommy gave him to me. He's very handsome. He thinks you're pretty. Patricia laughed. Tell Mr. Buttons thank you. Marcus carried Sophie toward the exit. The security guard who had watched them with suspicion that morning nodded as they passed. A man in an expensive suit held the door open for them. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm. Marcus stood on the sidewalk breathing deeply, letting the reality of what had just happened sink in. 3 hours ago, he had walked through those doors with nothing but desperation and his daughter's hand. Now he had a job. A real job. A chance to rebuild everything he had lost. Daddy. Sophie's voice was sleepy. I'm tired. I know, sweetheart. Let's go home. Can we get ice cream? Marcus smiled. Yeah, we can get ice cream. He carried her to the parking garage to the old Honda Civic that had somehow kept running through all the hard years. He strapped Sophie into her car seat, tucked Mr. Buttons beside her, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. $47. That was what he'd had this morning. That was what remained of a man who had once had everything. But money wasn't everything. He knew that now. He had learned it the hard way in hospital rooms and funeral homes, and endless nights of grief. What mattered was Sophie. What mattered was showing her that no matter how hard life got, you didn't give up. You kept fighting. You kept believing. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, the world gave you a second chance. Marcus started the car and drove toward home. Behind him, Titan Financial Group continued its recovery. Systems stabilized. Markets calmed. The $2 billion that had almost been lost remained safely in client accounts, and in a corner office on the top floor. Victoria Chase stood at her window watching a 12-year-old Honda Civic drive out of the parking garage. She didn't know why she was watching. She didn't know why she cared. But something about Marcus Webb had gotten under her skin. Something about the way he looked at his daughter, the way he refused to be broken, the way he had put his family before everything else. She had built her career on logic and strategy. She had inherited a company and transformed it through sheer force of will. She didn't believe in fate or destiny or any of that romantic nonsense. But standing there watching that old car disappear into traffic, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just begun. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. Board meeting in 15 minutes. Victoria turned away from the window. There would be time later to figure out what she was feeling. Right now she had a company to run. But as she walked to the elevator, she found herself smiling. A real smile, not the professional mask she wore for investors and board members. Marcus Webb had walked into her company with nothing but his daughter and his dignity. And in 93 seconds, he had changed everything. She had a feeling this was just the beginning. The first week at Titan Financial felt like a dream Marcus kept expecting to wake up from. He arrived each morning at 7:30, dropped Sophie at the company's emergency childcare center that Victoria had mysteriously fast-tracked into existence, and walked into an office that still didn't feel like his. The nameplate on his door read, Marcus Webb, Director of Cybersecurity, in polished brass letters. Every time he saw it, something twisted in his chest. "You're staring at that nameplate again." Henderson's voice came from behind him. Marcus turned. The technology head was holding 2 cups of coffee. He extended one toward Marcus. "Peace offering," Henderson said. "I was hard on you during the interview. I shouldn't have dismissed you so quickly." "You were doing your job." Marcus took the coffee. "Protecting the company from unknown variables." "I was protecting my ego from someone who made me look incompetent." Henderson leaned against the doorframe. 20 years in this industry. I thought I'd seen everything. Then you walked in with your kid in your Goodwill suit and did in 90 seconds what my entire team couldn't do in 30 minutes. You would have figured it out eventually." "No, I wouldn't have." Henderson's voice was flat honest. "That code was beyond anything I've ever encountered. If you hadn't been there..." He shook his head. $2 billion. Gone. Careers destroyed. Lives ruined. All because I was too proud to listen to someone who didn't fit my idea of what an expert should look like. Marcus sipped his coffee. It was good. Expensive. The kind of coffee he hadn't been able to afford in years. "I'm not here to make anyone look bad," he said. "I'm here to make sure what happened never happens again." How that malware was sophisticated. Military grade. Whoever created it had resources we can't match. They also made mistakes. Marcus set down his coffee and turned to his computer. Every piece of code has a signature, a fingerprint. The attack on Titan used frameworks that I developed 3 years ago at Meridian. That means whoever built it had access to my research. Crawford. Crawford couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. He's a manager, a politician. He took credit for my work, but he didn't understand it. Marcus pulled up a series of files. But he had access to everything I created, and if he sold that information to someone with the skills to weaponize it, then we're not just looking for a hacker, we're looking for a network. Exactly. Henderson moved closer, studying the screen. What do you need? Resources, a team, and access to everything Titan has on its previous security breaches. Not just the attack last week, everything going back 5 years. That's a lot of data. Then I'd better get started. Henderson nodded slowly. I'll get you clearance. But Marcus... He paused. Be careful. If you're right about this being bigger than one attack, you might be poking something that doesn't want to be poked. I've been poked plenty. Marcus smiled grimly. It's time to poke back. The next 3 weeks were a blur of code and coffee and late nights. Marcus built his team exactly as he had promised, hiring people that traditional HR would have overlooked. A single mother named Rachel, who had been out of the workforce for 6 years raising twins with special needs. A former convict named James, who had served time for hacking before turning his life around. A 62-year-old programmer named Walter, who had been forced into early retirement because someone decided he was too old to be relevant. Each of them had been written off. Each of them had something to prove. "You really think this ragtag group can compete with corporate security teams?" Bradley asked during a department heads meeting. "No offense to your unique hiring choices, but we're talking about protecting billions of dollars here. My ragtag group stopped an attack that your corporate security teams missed entirely." Marcus didn't back down. "They missed it because they were looking for conventional threats. My team doesn't think conventionally. That's the point. It's a risk. Everything is a risk. The question is whether the potential reward justifies it." Marcus looked around the table. "In the 3 weeks since my team started, we've identified 17 previously undetected vulnerabilities in Titan's systems. 17 backdoors that could have been exploited at any time. Your conventional approach missed all of them." Bradley had no response to that. After the meeting, Victoria caught Marcus in the hallway. "You handled that well," she said. "Bradley doesn't like being challenged." "Bradley doesn't like me. There's a difference. He's old school. He believes in hierarchy, seniority, paying your dues." Victoria fell into step beside him. "You threatened everything he thinks he knows about how success works." "I didn't threaten anything. I just proved that his way isn't the only way." To him, that's the same thing. Victoria paused outside his office door. "How's Sophie adjusting to the childcare center?" The question caught Marcus off guard. It was personal, human, not the kind of thing CEOs typically ask their employees. "She loves it," he admitted. "The staff is wonderful. She made 3 friends on the first day." He paused. "Thank you for setting that up. I know it wasn't easy. It should have existed years ago. Working parents shouldn't have to choose between their careers and their children." Victoria's voice carried an edge of something Marcus couldn't identify. "My father never understood that. He built this company by sacrificing everything else: his health, his marriage, his relationship with me. You didn't have a good relationship with him. I barely knew him." Victoria looked away. "He was always working, always chasing the next deal, the next acquisition. When he died, I realized I had inherited a company from a man who was essentially a stranger. I'm sorry." "Don't be. His absence taught me something valuable." She met his eyes. "It taught me what kind of leader I don't want to be." They stood in silence for a moment. The hallway was empty. Somewhere a phone was ringing. "I should get back to work," Marcus said finally. "We're close to something. The attack pattern, the code signatures. They're leading somewhere." "Where?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think whoever did this has done it before. Not just to us, to other companies, other targets." He hesitated. "And I think Crawford is the key. He's the connection between my research and whoever weaponized it." "What do you need?" "Permission to dig deeper. Some of what I might find could be sensitive. Corporate secrets, internal communications, things that could embarrass powerful people." Victoria's expression hardened. "Find the truth, whatever it takes. If there are people inside this industry who are profiting from attacks like the one we experienced, I want to know. And I want them exposed. Even if it damages relationships, business partnerships." Even then, Victoria stepped closer. "I didn't inherit this company to protect criminals. I inherited it to build something worth protecting. Do what you need to do, Marcus. I'll handle the consequences." She walked away. Marcus watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Respect. Admiration. Maybe something more. He shook his head. That wasn't why he was here. He had a job to do. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday night. Marcus was alone in his office, Sophie asleep on the small couch he had set up in the corner. She had begged to stay late with him, and he hadn't had the heart to say no. Now she was curled up under a blanket Mr. Buttons tucked under her arm, while her father hunted ghosts in the digital darkness. "Come on," Marcus muttered. "Show me something." He had been tracing the attack code backward, following its evolution through increasingly obscure corners of the internet. Dark web forums, encrypted communications, abandoned servers that hadn't been accessed in years. And then he found it. A single file buried in a defunct message board. A discussion thread from 18 months ago. Someone was selling access to advanced adaptive malware frameworks. The sample code included in the posting was unmistakably based on Marcus's work. But that wasn't what made his blood run cold. The seller's username was Meridian Ghost. "You son of a bitch," Marcus whispered. He started digging. Meridian Ghost had been active for almost 3 years, always selling variations of the same basic technology. The customers were anonymous, hidden behind layers of encryption and cryptocurrency transactions. But the pattern was clear. Every major cyber attack in the financial sector for the past 2 years had used code derived from Meridian Ghost's products. The attack on Meridian Technologies that had destroyed Marcus's career. The breach at First Continental Bank that had cost thousands of customers their savings. The ransomware incident at Western Pacific Credit Union that had shut down operations for 2 weeks. All of them. All connected. All based on work that Marcus had created to defend systems, not destroy them. "Daddy?" Sophie's voice made him jump. She was sitting up on the couch, rubbing her eyes. "Hey, sweetheart." Marcus forced his voice to stay calm. "Did I wake you? You were talking to yourself." Sophie yawned. "You only do that when something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong. Daddy just found something important." "Is it bad?" Marcus hesitated. "How did you explain betrayal to an 8-year-old? How did you tell her that the work you had created to help people had been twisted into a weapon that had hurt thousands?" "It's complicated," he said finally. "But finding it is a good thing. It means we can stop the bad people from hurting more innocent folks. Like superheroes." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "Yeah, like superheroes. Can I help? You already help, every day." He walked to the couch and sat beside her. "You know what gives me strength, Sophie? You. Knowing that I'm fighting for your future. That keeps me going when things get hard." Sophie leaned against him. "Mommy used to say that too, that I was her strength." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Elena. Even now, after 2 years, the mention of her name could still break him open. "Your mommy was the strongest person I ever knew," he said softly. "And she's still with us. Every time you smile, I see her. Every time you laugh, I hear her. She's not gone, Sophie. She's just somewhere we can't see, watching over us. Do you think she's proud of you?" "I hope so." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I really hope so." They sat together in the quiet office, father and daughter, while somewhere in the digital ether, evidence of unimaginable betrayal waited to be exposed. The next morning, Marcus requested a meeting with Victoria. "You look like you haven't slept," she said as he entered her office. "I haven't, but I found something." He placed a folder on her desk. "Meridian Ghost. That's the username of whoever has been selling my weaponized research for the past 3 years. Every major financial sector attack in that period can be traced back to code purchased from this seller." Victoria opened the folder, scanning the documents. "This is extensive. It gets worse. I've been analyzing the transaction patterns, the communication styles, the technical fingerprints. Whoever is running this operation isn't just some random hacker. They have inside knowledge, industry connections, access to information that only someone embedded in the financial sector would have. You think it's someone we know. I think it's someone everyone knows." Marcus sat down across from her. "The attacks aren't random. They're targeted. Specific companies at specific times. And every single one of those companies had something in common." "What?" They were all in competition with or negotiating against Harman Financial Group. Victoria's face went pale. Harman, you're sure? Look at the timeline. First Continental Bank was hit 2 weeks before Harman acquired their mortgage division at a steep discount. Western Pacific Credit Union was attacked right before they were supposed to announce a partnership that would have competed with Harman's small business lending. Meridian Technologies collapsed right after they rejected a buyout offer from a subsidiary connected to Harman. That's circumstantial. It's a pattern, and there's more. Marcus leaned forward. Remember Crawford? My old supervisor who stole my research and got me fired. 3 months after I was terminated, he left Meridian. Took a new job. He paused. At Harman Financial Group. The silence in the room was deafening. You're saying that Richard Crawford is Meridian Ghost, Victoria said slowly. That he's been selling your weaponized research to attack Harman's competitors. That he's behind every major cyber incident in the financial sector for the past 3 years. I'm saying it's possible, more than possible, but I don't have proof. Not the kind that would hold up in court. What would it take to get that proof? Access to Crawford directly. His communications, his financial records, his connections within Harman. Marcus shook his head. But that's impossible. Harman is a fortress. Their security is better than ours, and Crawford would see us coming from a mile away. Victoria stood and walked to the window. For a long moment she said nothing. There's something you don't know, she said finally. About Harman Financial. About why this is personal for me. Tell me. My father didn't die of a heart attack. Not exactly. Victoria turned to face him. 3 years ago, someone hacked into our medical systems, changed his medication dosages. The doctors didn't catch it in time. By the time they realized something was wrong, the damage was done. Marcus felt ice forming in his stomach. You think someone killed your father? I think someone saw an opportunity and took it. My father was in the middle of negotiations that would have made Titan the dominant force in the industry. He was about to close a deal that would have crippled Harman's market position. Victoria's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. 1 week after he died, Harman acquired 2 companies that had been about to sign with us. They've been eating into our market share ever since. Victoria. I've spent 3 years trying to prove it. 3 years of dead ends and covered tracks and lawyers telling me I didn't have enough evidence. She walked back to her desk, her eyes blazing. If you can connect Crawford to Meridian Ghost, and Meridian Ghost to Harman, we might finally have what we need to bring them down. It's not going to be easy. These people are careful. They've been doing this for years without getting caught. I don't care about easy. Victoria sat down across from him. I care about justice. For my father. For the people who lost their jobs when their companies were attacked. For you and everyone else whose lives were destroyed, so that a few powerful people could get richer. Marcus studied her face. The professional mask was gone. What remained was raw, genuine wounded. There might be a way, he said slowly. Crawford doesn't know I'm here. As far as he knows, I'm still working night security and fixing computers on weekends. If I could get close to him without him knowing who I really am. You want to go undercover? Not exactly. I want to bait him. Marcus pulled out his phone. Crawford is arrogant. He always was. He took credit for my work because he genuinely believed he deserved it. Men like that can't resist proving how smart they are. What are you suggesting? A trap. We leak information about a new security protocol I'm developing. Something revolutionary. Something that would make Titan systems impervious to the kind of attacks Crawford has been selling. Marcus smiled grimly. If Crawford is Meridian Ghost, he won't be able to resist. He'll need to know what I'm working on. He'll need to steal it, just like he stole everything else. And when he tries, we catch him, with evidence that even Harman's lawyers can't explain away. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. It's risky. If they realize what we're doing, then they come after us. I know. Marcus met her eyes. But they've already been coming after people like me for years. The only difference is, now we're ready. Now we fight back. You're willing to put yourself in danger for this, after everything you've been through. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure Sophie grows up in a world where people like Crawford don't always win. Marcus's voice hardened. They took my wife's final months from me. They took my career. They almost took my daughter's future. I'm not letting them take anything else. Victoria reached across the desk and took his hand. The gesture was unexpected, intimate. Marcus didn't pull away. We'll do this together, she said. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Victoria squeezed his hand, then released it. If we're going after Harmon, we're going to need more than evidence. We're going to need allies, people inside the industry who are tired of playing by rigged rules. Do you have people in mind? A few. Old colleagues of my father's who never trusted Harmon. Journalists who've been investigating financial sector corruption for years. Maybe even some contacts in the SEC who might be willing to look the other way while we gather what we need. This could take months. I've waited 3 years. A few more months won't kill me. Victoria stood. Start building the trap. I'll start building the army. And Marcus. Yes. Be careful. Crawford is dangerous. And whoever is backing him at Harmon is even more dangerous. They've killed before to protect their interests. They won't hesitate to do it again. Marcus thought of Sophie, of the promise he had made to Elena to always put their daughter first. I'm always careful, he said. I have too much to lose. The plan took shape over the following weeks. Marcus and his team developed a fake security protocol, elaborate enough to seem valuable, flawed enough to be tempting. They planted hints in industry forums, dropped casual mentions at conferences, created a breadcrumb trail that would lead anyone looking directly to Titan Financial. And then they waited. The attack came on a Friday night. Not the digital kind, not this time. The personal kind. Marcus was leaving the office late, Sophie asleep in his arms. The parking garage was empty, shadows stretching between concrete pillars, like dark fingers reaching for something to grab. He heard the footsteps behind him. Too late. Marcus Webb. He turned. 3 men stood between him and his car, large, professional. The kind of men who got paid to solve problems permanently. Gentlemen? Marcus held Sophie tighter. Can I help you? You've been asking questions that make certain people uncomfortable. The speaker was the tallest of the 3, a man with a scar running down his left cheek. Our employers would like you to stop. Your employers should have thought about that before they killed innocent people. The man smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Mr. Webb, you seem to be under the impression that this is a negotiation. It isn't. You're going to stop investigating. You're going to delete whatever files you've compiled. And you're going to forget that any of this ever happened. And if I don't... The man's eyes moved to Sophie. It would be a shame if something happened to such a beautiful little girl. Something broke inside Marcus. Something that had been carefully contained since the day Elena died. Something dark and cold and utterly without mercy. He set Sophie down gently, positioning her behind his legs. You want to threaten me? His voice was quiet, deadly. That's fine. I've been threatened before. But you mention my daughter again, and I swear to God you'll regret it. Big words from a man outnumbered 3-1. Numbers don't mean anything if you don't know who you're dealing with. The tall man laughed. And who exactly are we dealing with? A father. Marcus stepped forward. A father who buried his wife. A father who lost everything and rebuilt it from nothing. A father who will burn the entire world to the ground before he lets anyone hurt his child. Daddy. Sophie's voice was frightened. It's okay, sweetheart. These men were just leaving. The tall man's smile faded. We're not going anywhere until you agree to our terms. Then we have a problem. Marcus reached into his pocket. The 3 men tensed hands, moving toward concealed weapons. But all Marcus pulled out was his phone. Because I've been recording this entire conversation, and in about 30 seconds it's going to be transmitted to every major news outlet in the country, along with a detailed summary of everything I've uncovered about Harmon Financial and their connection to Meridian Ghost. The tall man's face went pale. You're bluffing. Try me. Marcus held up his phone, the red recording light clearly visible. Your employers thought they could intimidate me into silence. They thought I was just another victim they could crush. But they forgot something important. What's that? I have nothing left to lose. Marcus's voice was ice. They already took everything from me. My career, my reputation, my wife. The only thing I have left is my daughter and my integrity, and I will die before I give up either one. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the tall man stepped back. This isn't over, Webb. No, Marcus agreed. It isn't. But the next move is mine. Tell your employers that. The three men retreated into the shadows. Marcus waited until their footsteps faded, then waited another minute to be sure they were gone. Only then did he allow his hands to shake. Daddy, Sophie was crying. I'm scared. Marcus knelt down and pulled her into his arms. I know, sweetheart, I know. But it's going to be okay. Daddy's not going to let anything happen to you, ever. Who were those men? Bad people, but they're gone now, and they're never going to bother us again. Promise? I promise. He carried her to the car, buckled her in, and drove home through streets that suddenly felt darker than before. That night, after Sophie was finally asleep, Marcus made a phone call. Victoria, we need to talk. Things just escalated. He told her everything. The confrontation, the threats, the recording. When he finished, Victoria's voice was cold with fury. They threatened Sophie. They'll regret it. They'll do more than regret it. They'll pay. Victoria paused. Marcus, I think it's time to stop playing defense. We have enough evidence to go public. Not everything, but enough to make people start asking questions. Are you sure? Once we do that, there's no going back. I've been waiting 3 years to go forward. I'm done waiting. Victoria's voice hardened. Tomorrow morning I'm calling a press conference. I'm going to tell the world about the attack on Titan, about the pattern of incidents across the industry, and about our suspicions regarding who's behind it all. They'll deny everything. Let them. Denials create news cycles. News cycles create investigations. Investigations create pressure. Victoria paused. And pressure makes people make mistakes. Crawford will know I'm behind this. He'll come after me directly. Then let him come. We'll be ready. Victoria's voice softened slightly. Marcus, you're not alone in this anymore. Whatever happens next, we face it together. I promise. Marcus looked at his phone. At the recording still saved there. At the evidence that could bring down an empire of corruption and greed. Okay, he said finally. Let's do it. Let's end this. He hung up and sat in the darkness of his living room, listening to the sound of his daughter breathing in the next room. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow the war would begin in earnest. But tonight, he allowed himself one moment of peace. One moment to remember why he was fighting. One moment to feel Elena's presence, to imagine her approval, to believe that somewhere, somehow, she was proud of the man he had become. Then he closed his eyes and prepared himself for what was coming. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9:30, the lobby of Titan Financial was packed with reporters' cameras and the electric tension that preceded something explosive. Marcus stood backstage with Victoria watching the chaos through a crack in the curtain. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Are you ready for this? Victoria asked. I've been ready for 3 years. Once you step out there, your life changes forever. Crawford will know who's coming for him. Harmon will throw everything they have at you. There's no going back. There was never any going back. Marcus turned to face her. The moment they threatened Sophie, they made this personal. The moment I realized they killed your father, it stopped being about me. This is bigger than revenge. This is about making sure they can never do this to anyone else." Victoria reached out and squeezed his hand. "Whatever happens out there, I want you to know something." "What?" "I'm glad you walked into my company that day. I'm glad you brought Sophie. I'm glad you refused to be broken." She paused. "You've reminded me why I do this, why any of it matters." "Victoria." "Later." She released his hand. "We'll talk about everything later. Right now, we have a war to start." The press conference began with Victoria taking the podium. She was composed, professional, every inch the CEO. But there was fire in her eyes that Marcus had never seen before. 3 weeks ago, Titan Financial was the target of a sophisticated cyber attack. Thanks to the quick thinking of a remarkable individual, we were able to stop the attack before it caused catastrophic damage. But the incident raised questions that demanded answers. Questions about who was behind the attack and why. The reporters leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. "Our investigation has uncovered a pattern of cyber attacks across the financial sector spanning the past 3 years. Attacks that seemed random, but were actually targeted. Attacks designed to destabilize specific companies at specific moments, always benefiting the same competitor." "Are you accusing someone specific?" a reporter shouted. "I'm presenting evidence." Victoria pressed a button, and a display screen behind her lit up with data. "These are the attack signatures. Note the similarities in code structure, timing, and methodology. Our experts have determined that all of these attacks originated from the same source, a source we've identified as Meridian Ghost." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "But today, I'm not here just to present evidence. I'm here to introduce the man who uncovered this conspiracy. The man who stopped the attack on Titan. The man whose work was stolen 3 years ago and weaponized against innocent people." Victoria turned toward the curtain. "Marcus Webb." Marcus stepped onto the stage. The cameras flashed like lightning. He walked to the podium, feeling the weight of 3 years of injustice pressing down on his shoulders. "My name is Marcus Webb. 3 years ago, I was a cybersecurity specialist at Meridian Technologies. I was developing defensive protocols to protect financial systems from adaptive malware. But before I could complete my work, my supervisor Richard Crawford stole my research and had me terminated." The room went silent. 2 weeks after I buried my wife, I was escorted out of the building like a criminal. My work was credited to Crawford. My reputation was destroyed. And the research I had developed to protect people was sold to the highest bidder and turned into a weapon. "Do you have proof of these accusations?" a reporter demanded. "I have 3 years of evidence." Marcus clicked to the next slide. "This is the code signature from the attack on Titan Financial, and this is the code signature from my original research at Meridian. They're virtually identical. Whoever built this malware used my work as a foundation. That doesn't prove Crawford was involved." "No, but this does." Marcus clicked again. A chat log appeared on screen. "This is a conversation from a dark web forum 18 months ago. A user named Meridian Ghost selling access to advanced adaptive malware frameworks. The technical specifications match my stolen research exactly." "How do you know Meridian Ghost is Crawford?" "Because I traced the cryptocurrency payments." Another click. "The wallet addresses used by Meridian Ghost route through a series of shell companies. Shell companies that are all connected to the same parent organization." He paused. "Harman Financial Group." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed continuously. Marcus stood at the podium, letting the chaos wash over him. This was the moment. 3 years of silence, of suffering, of watching the guilty prosper while the innocent suffered. Now the world would know the truth. Victoria stepped forward to field questions, but Marcus barely heard her responses. His eyes had found a face in the crowd. A face he hadn't seen in 3 years but would never forget. Richard Crawford was standing at the back of the room. Their eyes met. Crawford's expression was calm, almost amused. He raised his hand in a small wave, then turned and walked out. Marcus's blood ran cold. "Excuse me," he said into the microphone. "I need a moment." He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouted questions, the grabbing hands, the chaos. By the time he reached the lobby, Crawford was gone, but his phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Nice performance, but you've made a mistake. Check on your daughter." Marcus's heart stopped. Sophie was at school. She was supposed to be safe. He had arranged extra security, had made sure the teachers knew to keep her under constant watch. He dialed the school's number. No answer. He dialed again. Still nothing. He was running before he made the conscious decision to move, sprinting through the lobby, past the confused security guards, out into the street. His car was in the garage. Too far. He needed to get to Sophie now. "Marcus?" Victoria's voice came from behind him. "What's wrong?" "Sophie, Crawford sent a message. Something's wrong." Victoria didn't hesitate. "My car, now." They raced through downtown traffic, running red lights, weaving between vehicles. Marcus kept trying the school's number. Nothing. He tried Sophie's teacher directly. Voicemail. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, come on, come on. We're almost there." Victoria's voice was tense. 5 minutes. 5 minutes is too long. If something happened to her. Don't go there. Focus. They pulled up to the school in 4 minutes. Marcus was out of the car before it stopped moving, sprinting toward the entrance. The doors were locked. He pounded on them until a confused security guard appeared. "My daughter, Sophie Webb. Where is she?" "Sir, you need to calm down." "Where is my daughter?" "She's in class. Everything is fine." Marcus felt his knees weaken. "She's okay. You're sure?" "I just saw her at lunch. She's fine." The security guard studied him with concern. "Sir, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to see her. Now." "I'll need to verify your identity and contact the front office." "I don't care what you need to do. Get my daughter. Now." Victoria appeared beside him, flashing her ID. "I'm Victoria Chase, CEO of Titan Financial. This man's daughter may be in danger. Please, we need to see her immediately." The guard's eyes widened. He reached for his radio. "This is Jenkins at the main entrance. I need someone to bring Sophie Webb to the office. Priority 1. The next 3 minutes were the longest of Marcus's life. He stood in the school lobby, his heart pounding, his hands shaking, unable to think about anything except the worst possibilities. Then he heard her voice. "Daddy?" Sophie was walking down the hallway, a confused teacher beside her. She was fine, unharmed, alive. Marcus dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she squeaked in protest. "Daddy, you're squishing me." "I know, I'm sorry, I just..." His voice broke. "I love you so much, Sophie. So much." "I love you too." She pulled back, studying his face with those two perceptive eyes. "Why are you crying?" "I'm just happy to see you, sweetheart. That's all." "But you saw me this morning." "I know. Sometimes daddies just need to hug their kids for no reason." He wiped his eyes. "How about we go home early today, just you and me?" "But I have art class." "We can do art at home. I'll buy you new crayons." Sophie considered this. The really big box with the sharpener. The really big box with the sharpener. "Okay," she smiled. "Can we get ice cream too?" "We can get all the ice cream you want." Victoria drove them home. She stayed in the living room while Marcus got Sophie settled with her coloring books and snacks, then joined him in the kitchen. "Crawford was bluffing," she said quietly. "He wanted to scare you, to throw you off balance." It worked. Marcus leaned against the counter. "For about 5 minutes I thought I had lost her, the way I lost Elena." "But you didn't. She's safe, and Crawford just made a huge mistake." "What do you mean?" "That text message. It's evidence. He threatened your daughter on the same day we went public with accusations against him. Victoria pulled out her phone. I've already forwarded it to our legal team. Combined with everything else, it's going to make prosecution much easier. Prosecution doesn't bring back what he's taken. No, but it stops him from taking more. Victoria moved closer. Marcus, I know this is hard. I know you want to confront him directly to make him pay with your own hands. But that's not how we win this. We win by being smarter, by building a case so airtight that even Harmon's army of lawyers can't get him out. And in the meantime, he walks around free while Sophie has to live in fear. In the meantime, we protect her. I've already arranged for private security. Former FBI agents. The best in the business. They'll watch Sophie around the clock without her even knowing. I can't afford. You're not paying. I am. Victoria held up her hand before he could protest. Don't argue. This is non-negotiable. Crawford threatened your daughter to get to me. That makes it my responsibility. Victoria, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. Her voice softened. Marcus, you've given me something I haven't had in 3 years. Hope. Hope that the people who destroyed my father will finally face justice. The least I can do is make sure your daughter is safe while we finish this. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. Not at the CEO, not at the powerful woman who controlled a billion-dollar company. At the person underneath. The one who had lost her father. The one who understood grief and rage and the desperate need for justice. Thank you, he said quietly. For everything. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won. We will. How do you know? Because I have something Crawford doesn't have. Marcus glanced toward the living room where Sophie was carefully coloring a picture of a rainbow. I have something worth fighting for. The response to the press conference was immediate and overwhelming. News networks ran the story around the clock. Financial analysts debated the implications. Regulatory agencies announced investigations. Harmon Financial's stock price dropped 15% in a single day. But Crawford didn't run. He didn't hide. Instead, he did something Marcus hadn't expected. He scheduled his own press conference. This is a coordinated attack by a disgruntled former employee with a personal vendetta. Crawford stood behind his own podium, surrounded by expensive lawyers, his face a mask of wounded dignity. Marcus Webb was terminated from Meridian Technologies for cause. His work was substandard. His attendance was unreliable. And now, 3 years later, he's fabricated evidence to blame others for his own failures. What about the code signatures? A reporter asked. The cryptocurrency trail. Circumstantial at best. Fabricated at worst. Crawford's smile was oily confident. My lawyers are preparing defamation suits against both Mr. Webb and Victoria Chase. We will not allow malicious accusations to destroy the reputation I've spent decades building. Marcus watched the press conference from his office at Titan. Rachel James and Walter stood behind him. He's good, Rachel said. The way he's spinning this, some people will believe him. Some people always believe the powerful. James shook his head. But not everyone. Not anymore. What do we do now? Walter asked. We wait. Marcus didn't take his eyes off the screen. Crawford is scared. That's why he's counterattacking so hard. Scared people make mistakes. What if he doesn't make a mistake? He will. Marcus turned to face his team. I know this man. I worked beside him for 5 years. He's arrogant. He thinks he's the smartest person in every room. That arrogance is his weakness. How do we exploit it? We give him what he wants. Marcus walked to his whiteboard. Crawford didn't just steal my research. He took credit for everything I created. He built his entire reputation on my work. That means he has a blind spot. He thinks he understands the technology because he presented it in meetings and took the bonuses. But he never actually learned how it works. So we create something new, something that looks like the perfect upgrade to the original malware. something that would make Crawford's products obsolete. Marcus began sketching on the board. We leak it, make sure it gets to him, and when he steals it... It's a trap. Rachel's eyes lit up. The code will have a tracer, something that identifies whoever uses it. Better than a tracer. Marcus smiled grimly. A confession. I've spent 3 years thinking about how the malware works. I know its architecture better than anyone alive. I can build a version that will record everything. Every command Crawford issues, every communication he sends, every transaction he authorizes. All of it automatically transmitted to servers he doesn't control. That's brilliant. Walter leaned forward. But won't he be suspicious? After everything that's happened. That's the beauty of it. Crawford needs this. His credibility is damaged. His clients are nervous. If he can prove he has access to cutting-edge technology, he can reassure them. His arrogance won't let him turn it down. And when he activates it, we get everything. Names, dates, transactions. A complete record of every crime he's committed for the past 3 years. James whistled. That's not just a trap. That's a nuclear bomb. It's justice. Marcus turned back to the whiteboard. Let's get to work. The bait took 2 weeks to prepare. It was Marcus's masterpiece, elegant in its deception, devastating in its potential. They called it Prometheus, and they made sure whispers about it reached the right ears. Crawford took the bait 3 days later. Marcus was in his office when the alert came. The tracer had activated. Crawford was testing the code. He's accessing it right now. Rachel's voice was tense. The recording system is online. We're getting everything. How long until he realizes it's a trap? If he's smart, maybe an hour. If he's as arrogant as you think, he'll never realize it. Marcus watched the data stream across his screen. Crawford doesn't examine code. He trusts his underlings to do that, and his underlings are too afraid of him to report anything suspicious. So we just wait. We wait, and we gather. For 3 days, Prometheus recorded everything. Crawford's communications with other hackers, his instructions to his team, his financial transactions with Harman executives. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Dozens of attacks across multiple countries, hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. And at the center of it all, Richard Crawford conducting his criminal empire like an orchestra of destruction. On the 4th day, Victoria walked into Marcus's office with 2 men in dark suits. Marcus, this is Agent Morrison and Agent Chen from the FBI. They've been following your work. Morrison extended his hand. Mr. Webb, we've been investigating the attacks you identified for over a year, but we could never get enough evidence to move forward. Until now. The recordings. The recordings. Chen stepped forward. They're admissible. Our legal team has reviewed them. Combined with your testimony and the documentation you've gathered, we have enough for a federal indictment. Just Crawford, or... Crawford, 14 executives at Harman Financial, and 6 independent contractors who helped facilitate the attacks. Morrison's expression was grim. This is one of the largest cybercrime cases in American history, and you made it happen. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. 3 years. 3 years of suffering, of struggling, of watching the people who destroyed his life prosper and succeed. And now, finally, it was ending. When do you arrest him? Tonight. We're coordinating with multiple agencies. Crawford and his co-conspirators will be in custody by morning. I want to be there. Morrison hesitated. Mr. Webb, that's not standard procedure. I don't care about procedure. Marcus stood. That man stole my work. He had me fired 2 weeks after I buried my wife. He threatened my daughter. I've spent 3 years dreaming about the moment he gets what he deserves. He met Morrison's eyes. I need to see it. The agents exchanged glances. Then Morrison nodded slowly. We can arrange for you to observe, but you stay in the car. You don't approach him. You don't speak to him. Understood. Understood. They came for Crawford at 11:47 p.m. Marcus sat in an FBI sedan across the street from Crawford's mansion, watching through tinted windows as agents surrounded the property. Victoria was beside him, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." Marcus watched the agents move into position. "I've imagined this moment so many times. I thought I would feel, I don't know, triumphant, vindicated. What do you feel?" "Empty." He turned to look at her. 3 years of hate, and now it's almost over. I don't know who I am without it." "You're Sophie's father. You're a brilliant security expert. You're a man who refused to be broken by impossible circumstances." Victoria squeezed his hand. "The hate was just something you carried while you waited for justice. Now you can put it down." The front door of the mansion opened. Crawford emerged in handcuffs, agents on either side. Even from across the street, Marcus could see the shock on his face, the disbelief, the realization that his empire of lies was finally crumbling. "Marcus Webb sends his regards." One of the agents said it loud enough to carry across the quiet street. Crawford's head snapped up. His eyes found the sedan, found Marcus watching through the window. For a long moment they stared at each other. The man who had stolen everything, and the man who had refused to let that theft define him. Then Crawford looked away, and the agents led him to a waiting vehicle. "It's done," Victoria said softly. "Not yet." Marcus watched the FBI convoy pull away. "The arrests are just the beginning. There's going to be a trial, testimony, more evidence to present. It could take years. Are you ready for that?" "I've been ready for 3 years." Marcus turned to face her. "But I'm tired of only looking backward. I'm tired of letting the past control my future. What do you want to look at instead?" "I don't know yet." He paused. "Maybe something that scares me even more than Crawford did." "What's that?" "Hope." Marcus took a breath. "The possibility that maybe after everything there's still something good waiting. For me, for Sophie, for—" He trailed off. "For us." The word hung in the air between them. "Victoria, Don't." She raised her hand. "Don't say anything tonight. Tonight is about closure, about ending one chapter." She moved closer. "But when you're ready, when the trial is over and the wounds have healed, I want you to know that I'll be waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to be ready to start a new chapter." She leaned forward and kissed his cheek, soft and brief. "Take your time, Marcus. You've earned it." They drove home in comfortable silence. Victoria dropped him at his apartment, and Marcus watched her taillights disappear into the night. Inside, Sophie was asleep in her bed, Mr. Buttons tucked under her arm. The security guard Victoria had arranged was stationed in the hallway, reading a novel. Marcus stood in his daughter's doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about Elena, about the life they had planned together, the dreams they had shared, the future that had been stolen from them, but also thinking about Victoria, about the way she looked at him, about the possibilities that tomorrow might hold. "I did it, Elena," he whispered into the darkness. "I got justice for us, for everything they took." The room was silent, but Marcus could almost feel her presence, her approval, her blessing to move forward. He walked to Sophie's bed and kissed her forehead. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. "I love you, sweetheart," he said. "More than anything in the world." Then Marcus Webb went to his own room, lay down on his bed, and for the first time in 3 years slept without nightmares. The trial lasted 14 months. Marcus testified for 3 days. He walked the jury through every line of code, every stolen document, every conversation that Crawford had thought was private. He explained how his research had been weaponized, how innocent companies had been destroyed, how thousands of people had lost their jobs because one man's greed had no limits. Crawford's lawyers tried everything. They attacked Marcus's credibility. They questioned his motives. They painted him as a bitter ex-employee with a vendetta. But the evidence was overwhelming. The Prometheus recordings captured everything. Crawford's own voice giving orders. Crawford's own hands typing commands. Crawford's own arrogance preserved forever in digital form. On the day of the verdict, Marcus sat in the courtroom with Sophie beside him. Victoria was on his other side, her hand resting quietly on his arm. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." Marcus held his breath. "On the count of computer fraud and abuse, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit economic espionage, we find the defendant guilty." The words kept coming. Guilty. 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 27 counts in total. Each one a vindication. Each one a small piece of justice for everything Crawford had taken. Crawford's face went white. For the first time since Marcus had known him, the arrogance was gone. What remained was fear. Pure, naked fear. "Richard Crawford, you are hereby sentenced to 45 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits. Lawyers huddled in urgent conversations. But Marcus sat perfectly still, letting the reality wash over him. It was over. After 3 years, it was finally over. "Daddy." Sophie tugged at his sleeve. "Did the bad man get in trouble?" "Yes, sweetheart." Marcus pulled her onto his lap. "The bad man got in trouble." "Good." Sophie nodded with 8-year-old certainty. "He was mean to you. Mean people should get in trouble." "Sometimes they do." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Sometimes, if you're patient and brave, the good guys win." "Like in the stories?" "Just like in the stories." Victoria leaned close. "How do you feel?" Marcus considered the question. For so long he had imagined this moment. He had dreamed of Crawford's downfall, fantasized about watching the man who destroyed his life finally face consequences. He had expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, complete. Instead, he felt something quieter, something like peace. "I feel like I can breathe again," he said. "Like a weight I've been carrying for 3 years just disappeared." "That's because it did." Victoria smiled. "It's over, Marcus. You won." "We won." He reached for her hand. "I couldn't have done this without you. You would have found a way. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met." "Is that a compliment?" "It's the highest compliment I know how to give." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them. Microphones thrust forward. Cameras flashed. "Mr. Webb, how does it feel to see your former supervisor convicted?" "Mr. Webb, what's next for you?" "Mr. Webb, is it true that you're in a relationship with Victoria Chase?" Marcus stopped at that last question. He looked at Victoria, then at Sophie, then back at the sea of expectant faces. "What's next for me," he said slowly, "is being a father, being present for my daughter, building a life that my wife would have been proud of." He paused. "As for the rest, some things are private, and they're going to stay that way." He took Sophie's hand in one of his and Victoria's in the other, and they walked through the crowd together. The months that followed were quieter than Marcus had expected. Crawford's conviction triggered a cascade of consequences. Harmon Financial collapsed under the weight of investigations and lawsuits. 14 other executives went to prison. The entire landscape of the financial industry shifted as companies scrambled to prove they weren't connected to the conspiracy. But Marcus barely noticed. He was too busy living. He dropped Sophie at school every morning at 8:15. He picked her up every afternoon at 3:30. He made dinner every night, even when he was exhausted, because sitting across the table from his daughter and hearing about her day was the most important thing in the world. His team at Titan flourished. Rachel got promoted twice. James earned certifications that opened doors he never thought possible. Walter became a mentor to young programmers, proving that experience and wisdom never went out of style. And Victoria became something Marcus hadn't expected, something he had been afraid to hope for. It started slowly. Dinners after work that lasted longer than they should. Conversations that wandered from business to life, to dreams, to fears. Moments when their eyes met and neither wanted to look away. Sophie was the first to notice. "Daddy, do you like Miss Victoria?" They were eating breakfast. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "What do you mean, sweetheart? You smile different when she's around." Sophie took a bite of her cereal. "Like how you used to smile at Mommy." Marcus set down his cup. "Sophie, It's okay." Sophie's voice was matter-of-fact. "Mommy's in heaven. She can't smile at you anymore, but you should still have someone who makes you smile." "Where did you learn to be so wise?" "Mr. Buttons told me." She held up the worn teddy bear. "He says Mommy would want you to be happy." Marcus felt tears forming. He blinked them back. "Mr. Buttons is very smart." "I know. That's why I keep him around." That night, Marcus called Victoria. "Can you come over? There's something I need to talk to you about." She arrived 30 minutes later. Sophie was already in bed and Marcus had opened a bottle of wine that he had been saving for a special occasion. This looked serious. Victoria accepted the glass he offered. "Should I be worried?" "No, maybe, I don't know." Marcus sat down across from her. "I'm not good at this, Victoria. I haven't been good at this for a long time." "Good at what?" "Being honest about what I feel." He took a breath. "When Elena died, I shut down a part of myself. The part that could hope. The part that could imagine a future beyond just surviving. I told myself that my only purpose was Sophie, that I didn't need anything else, that I didn't deserve anything else." "Marcus? Let me finish, please." He set down his wine. "Then you came into my life. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You stood by me when everything was falling apart. You believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself." Victoria was silent, her eyes never leaving his face. "I've been scared to admit this. Scared that if I said it out loud, something would go wrong. That I would lose you the way I lost Elena." Marcus's voice cracked. "But Sophie said something this morning. She said that I smile different when you're around, like I used to smile at her mother. Sophie said that... She also said that Elena would want me to be happy." Marcus leaned forward. "Victoria, I don't know what this is between us. I don't know where it's going. But I know that when I think about the future, you're in it. You and Sophie and something that looks a lot like a family." Victoria's eyes were shining. "Marcus, I've been waiting for you to say something like this for months." "You have. Of course I have." She laughed softly. "Why do you think I kept finding excuses to visit your department? Why do you think I arranged that childcare center in 3 days? Why do you think I've been at every school event, every birthday party, every little moment I could insert myself into? I thought you were just being supportive. I was being in love with you, you idiot." She set down her wine and moved to sit beside him. "I've been falling for you since the day you walked into my company with your daughter and your dignity and refused to let anyone break you." "Victoria, I know it's complicated. I know there's Elena and Sophie and the difference in our positions. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this might not work." She took his hands. "But I also know that I've never felt this way about anyone, and I'm willing to take the risk if you are." Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had given him back his hope, who had stood beside him through the darkest moments, who had become without him even realizing it the center of his new life. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "So am I. I might mess this up. We might mess it up together. Sophie has to come first, always. I wouldn't have it any other way." Victoria squeezed his hands. "Marcus, I'm not trying to replace Elena. I would never try to replace her. But I want to be part of whatever comes next. For you. For Sophie. For all of us. Marcus didn't respond with words. He leaned forward and kissed her gentle at first, then deeper. 3 years of loneliness and fear and carefully guarded hope, all dissolving in a single moment of connection. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. "I love you," Marcus said. "I didn't think I would ever say those words again. But I love you, Victoria Chase." "I love you too." She wiped her eyes, laughing. "God, look at us. 2 successful adults crying like teenagers." "I think we've earned it." They sat together on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, something new was beginning. "What do we tell Sophie?" Victoria asked. "The truth. That Daddy found someone who makes him happy. That she's going to be part of our family if she wants to be." "What if she doesn't want me?" "Are you kidding?" Marcus smiled. "She's been asking when you're going to move in for the past 3 months." "She has not." "She has. She also wants to know if you'll let her paint your nails." Victoria laughed. "I think I can handle that." "Good, because she's very persistent." "I wonder where she gets that from." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Victoria spoke again, her voice soft. "I never thought I would have this. After my father died, after everything that happened with the company, I thought I was meant to be alone. That love was something that happened to other people. I know the feeling. But you changed that. You and Sophie. You showed me that family isn't about blood or history. It's about choosing to show up, choosing to stay, choosing to fight for something bigger than yourself." Elena used to say something similar. Marcus's voice was gentle. "She said that love wasn't a feeling. It was a decision you made every day." "She sounds like she was an incredible woman." "She was. You would have liked her." "I think she would have liked me too." Victoria looked up at him. "I think she would have approved of this. Of us." "I know she would." 1 year later, Marcus stood at the altar of a small church, watching Victoria walk toward him. Sophie was the flower girl, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than precision. She wore a white dress and had insisted on carrying Mr. Buttons, despite everyone's gentle suggestions that teddy bears weren't traditional wedding accessories. The guests were an unusual mix. Titan executives sat beside Marcus's security team. Rachel, James, and Walter were in the front row. Henderson, who had become an unexpected friend, served as one of the groomsmen. Even Agent Morrison had accepted an invitation, sitting in the back with a rare smile on his face. But Marcus barely noticed any of them. His eyes were fixed on Victoria, radiant in her white dress, walking toward a future neither of them had dared to imagine. "Who gives this woman to be married? I do." Victoria's uncle stepped forward, on behalf of her father, who would have been proud to see this day. The ceremony was simple. Neither of them wanted elaborate vows or theatrical gestures. They had both learned that the most important things in life were the quiet ones, the daily choices, the small moments of connection. "Marcus, do you take Victoria to be your wife?" "I do." "Victoria, do you take Marcus to be your husband?" "I do." "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Marcus pulled Victoria close and kissed her while the church erupted in applause. Sophie cheered the loudest, waving Mr. Buttons above her head like a victory flag. "We did it," Victoria whispered against his lips. "We did." Marcus pulled back, looking at her with wonder. "I can't believe we did." "Believe it." She took his hand. "This is real. This is ours." They walked down the aisle together, Sophie running ahead of them, petals flying in her wake. Outside, the sun was shining. The future stretched before them, uncertain, but full of possibility. At the reception, Sophie climbed onto Marcus's lap during the speeches. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Are we a real family now, you and me and Victoria?" Marcus looked at his daughter, at this brave, wise, beautiful child who had taught him more about courage than anyone else in his life. "We've always been a real family," he said. "We were a family when it was just you and me eating cereal and reading stories. We were a family when Mommy was still with us. And we're a family now with Victoria." He kissed her forehead. "Family isn't about who's related to you. It's about who shows up, who loves you, who never gives up on you. Like you never gave up on me? Like I'll never give up on you." Marcus held her tight. "No matter what happens, Sophie, no matter where life takes us, you will always, always be my priority. My reason. My everything." "I know, Daddy." Sophie snuggled closer. "Mr. Buttons knows too. He says you're the best daddy in the whole world." "Tell Mr. Buttons thank you." "He says you're welcome." Victoria joined them, sliding into the seat beside Marcus. Sophie immediately reached for her, and Victoria pulled the girl into a three-way hug. "What are we talking about?" Victoria asked. "Family," Marcus said, "and how lucky we are to have found each other." "I think luck had very little to do with it," Victoria smiled. "I think it was courage, and stubbornness, and a refusal to let the world break us. That too." They sat together as the reception continued around them. Music played, people danced, speeches were given, and toasts were raised. But for Marcus, the only thing that mattered was the two people beside him. His daughter, his wife, his family. 2 years after that, Marcus stood at the window of his home office, watching Sophie play in the backyard with her new baby brother. Thomas had been born 6 months ago, and Sophie had immediately declared herself his protector. She pushed his stroller on walks. She helped with feedings. She read him stories every night, using all the different voices she had learned from her father. "You're thinking again." Victoria's voice came from the doorway. "I can hear the gears turning from across the house." "Just remembering." Marcus turned to face her. 3 years ago, I walked into your company with $47 in my bank account and no hope. Now look at us." 3 years ago, I was running a company I had inherited from a father I barely knew, trying to prove I deserved to be there. Victoria moved to stand beside him. "You showed me what real strength looks like, what real character looks like. I was just trying to survive. No, you were trying to live. There's a difference." Victoria took his hand. "Surviving is just getting through each day. Living is building something worth protecting. That's what you were doing, Marcus, even when you didn't realize it." They watched Sophie pushing Thomas's stroller across the grass, making airplane noises that sent the baby into fits of giggles. "Do you ever think about Crawford?" Victoria asked. "Sometimes. Less and less." Marcus paused. "He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. The money, the power, the reputation he built on stolen work and ruined lives, all of it gone. There's a kind of justice in that. But I've realized something. Revenge was never what I really wanted. I thought it was. I spent 3 years dreaming about his downfall. But when it finally happened, the satisfaction lasted about 5 minutes. He turned to face her. What I really wanted was this: a life worth living, a family worth protecting, a future worth fighting for. And you have all of those things now." "I do." Marcus smiled. "I really do." The doorbell rang. Victoria went to answer it and returned a moment later with Rachel, James, and Walter. The whole gang. Marcus embraced each of them. "What's the occasion?" "Did you forget?" Rachel laughed. "It's the anniversary of Prometheus. 3 years since we took down Crawford and his network." "I can't believe it's been 3 years," Walter said. "Feels like yesterday we were huddled in Marcus's office writing code and eating cold pizza." "Best cold pizza of my life," James grinned, "though I have to say the paychecks have improved since then." They gathered in the living room, sharing stories and memories. Sophie brought Thomas in to show everyone, proudly explaining that she was teaching him to identify different types of malware. She's going to be running the security division before she's 12. Rachel shook her head. The apple doesn't fall far. God, I hope not. Marcus laughed. I'd like her to have a slightly less dramatic career path. No chance. Victoria wrapped her arm around his waist. She's your daughter. Drama is in her DNA. As the afternoon stretched into evening, Marcus found himself stepping outside for a moment of quiet. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He thought about Elena, about the life they had planned together cut short by illness and injustice. He thought about the years of struggle, the moments of despair, the times when giving up would have been easier than going on. And he thought about everything that had come after. The second chance he had almost walked away from. The people who had believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. The family he had built from the ashes of his grief. Hey. Victoria appeared beside him. You okay? Better than okay. Marcus put his arm around her. I was just thinking about how different everything could have been, if the babysitter hadn't canceled, if I had given up after the interview, if Crawford hadn't been stupid enough to take the bait. Lots of ifs. Too many. He pulled her closer. But here we are, despite everything. Because of everything. Victoria looked up at him. Every struggle, every setback, every moment of darkness. It all led to this. To us. From inside the house, Sophie's laughter rang out. Thomas gurgled in response. Their friends' voices rose and fell in easy conversation. This is what I was fighting for, Marcus said quietly. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was fighting for revenge, for justice, for my reputation. He shook his head. But really, I was fighting for this. For the chance to stand here with you watching our children grow up in a world where the good guys sometimes win. The good guys always win eventually. Victoria smiled. It just takes longer than we'd like. Patience was never my strong suit. I know, but stubbornness works almost as well. They stood together in the fading light, two people who had found each other against impossible odds. Behind them, through the windows of their home, family and friends celebrated life and love and the simple miracle of second chances. Marcus Webb had walked into Titan Financial with nothing but his daughter's hand and $47 to his name. They had laughed at him. They had dismissed him. They had been certain he didn't belong. They were wrong. Because Marcus Webb had something they couldn't see, something that couldn't be measured in dollars or credentials or corporate hierarchies. He had character. He had courage. He had the unshakable belief that being a good father was more important than being a successful businessman. And in the end, that belief had saved him. It had saved his daughter. It had brought him love and purpose and a future he had never dared to imagine. The world had tried to break Marcus Webb, but Marcus Webb had refused to break, and that made all the difference.